Hi, welcome to the small shed. This week on the Cyclekart I'm making a start on the body framing. I'll see you in a minute. It's time to start and think about bodywork, which may seem a little bit odd when we're still only in the very early stages of chassis. This falls back to the same situation I have with the cowl about establishing position of driver and that within the cart. I'd originally thought that I would be producing a rolling chassis first, but when I did the mock-ups, and that was quite a valuable part of the mock-ups, I got this problem or this issue around the cockpit size. And I became, I won't say paranoid about it, but it's certainly something that I have concerns about. That and the narrowness of this front section. And this is the time to try and address it. There's the issue of whether I can get in and out under the cowl and the position of the back seat, or the back of the seat, that are all sort of conspiring to put doubts in my mind. That I never, although I got pretty much straight in my head what I was doing with the mock-ups, and they proved an awful lot and were very valuable, but it's still not quite the same as the real thing. So I just want to get the front part resolved, from the nose cone bulkhead to the scuttle bulkhead, happy in my mind that I can get my knees under the dashboard, I can get in and out with the steering column in the way and things like that. So for that purpose I need to get this front section of car built or mocked up, or at least the framework built from the point just, say, at the back of the cowl forwards to the scuttle, and get a scuttle built. The backs of the seat and everything can be a bit of ply anything just to work that out fine, but I really want to get the framing built for all these other things. And to that end I've got the front scuttle marked on a piece of plywood, and I've just started putting on framework that I think will be a suitable sort of size, and the kind of pieces of timber I need to do that. I'm going for traditional sort of Morgan style construction of a timber frame with a skin of something on it, be it aluminium or anything else I come up with. I was going to use ash, but at the moment I'm not going out a lot and I'm not sure what there is available. As it happens, I have a chunk of maple which was used for guitar necks, and I've finished using with that. That's nice timber, solid, hard. It's a suitable alternative, I think, bearing in mind this is non-structural or anything. But I want to know how to cut this piece of maple up. Now, my original thought was that the chassis rails are in essence 40mm wide. I'll have a skin of something on the body 2 or 3mm deep, so therefore it means I'll need a timber that sits on top of that, which is somewhere around the 35 to 38mm wide. And for height I don't think I need quite so much, probably 25mm, and I can just reinforce corner joints because there's nothing on this that's very big. However, there are some chunks of the cowl, of the scuttle, I mean, that are quite big sections. The thing comes in on an angle with two members coming, one vertically and one at an angle, and at the top of that there is quite a large area that I can make out of a single piece of timber, or large pieces of timber, shall we say. So before I cut this up and then find I've got problems because I wanted something bigger, I'm just drawing out both positions in the car, the scuttle and the nose cone, and just working out how it will work. And I think what will happen is that at the scuttle, a pair of pieces sort of slightly on the slant will start to take the curve of the top of the body, and they need to be roughly that sort of shape, because that's the sort of shape that the top of the scuttle is. And I'm just working out now how big those need to be, because I can then cut them off the end before I start slicing it up to get the smaller sections. And I've found as well on the bulkhead drawing that there are sort of two sizes I need. I want this 35 by 25 or whatever it is, but I could also do with that similar width of 38mm or whatever it be, or 25mm, I'm not sure yet, but I want it by 50mm deep to get the curves on top of the scuttle as well, on top of the cowl as well. I'm sorry, I'm getting confused. So let's just carry on with this for a minute or two, establish what I need, and then I can start and machine up some timber, something I'm probably a lot more happy with than working with the metals and mechanics of the thing. That's worked out quite well. If I put on to this piece of maple the size of the two pieces that I'm going to need for the scuttle, it leaves me with about 600mm, 2 foot, and that is pretty much the length between the nose cone and the scuttle. So these long pieces I now cut will be long enough to do all the framework for that on the bodywork. So it's worked out well doing that planning first. So I can now rip this into the necessary 25 by, I think I can get 25mm wide. It's 51, 52. So with the kerf of the blade, it'll leave me with two 25mm slabs left that I can rip into 38 and or 50mm wide pieces. That'll work out well. Okay, so I think we've got the pieces now cut effectively for this section, and what that's going to have is these side blocks will be carved at the top facing inwards. That will go across the very top and be carved into the curve over the top, and then coming down from that there'll be a pair of these members, one vertical and one on the slant backwards towards the cockpit. And then at the bottom level we'll have a layer of these on top of the side rails, the frame rails. So that should all make a wooden framework that's a triangle there all the way across the car, rails forwards, and then at the front bulkhead we'll do a similar sort of arrangement, and it won't require quite as much heavy carved wood at the top. This has all got to support the glass fibre for the cowl and everything around the steering wheel. so that's why we need a bit more support there. And the bars will go right the way down to the frame rails, along the top of the frame rails, and then I'm not sure yet whether there'll be an intermediate timber, possibly will be, just to support whatever bodywork there is below the bonnet. And that essentially will get me to cockpit area, which is where I want to be. So we'll just start and clean up this timber now and get it planed up, cut to shape, all the joints done. I may not actually glue it up at the moment, because until I've got the frame rails permanently sorted and I know what my skinning material is, I don't quite know how much I've got to allow. At the moment I'm just allowing about 3mm on top of the rails for the actual outer skin. By the time that's planed off, the outer skin will then come down level with the frame rails, but there's a little bit of playing around to be done with that until I actually get my bodywork material sorted. Well, I've got the nose here and I'm waiting for the glass fibre materials to make the front nose cone. I'm just going to use it as a former to make the front bulkhead, so that we can start and get the frame and body made, working from front to back. At least that way should have a nice flush fitting body at that joint, which is where the bonnet meets the nose positions. That's the nose cone shape that I'll need to reproduce in thicker timber, but I needed to get the shape so that I can then get my pieces of maple or whatever and shape them to fit. So I've got the nose cone. I've just done the intermediate bulkhead, which is at the back of the bonnet. That again is straightforward, but I've realised that I've made myself a bit of a problem with the scuttle there. Now the scuttle comes in on an angle and almost touches the one at the back of the bulkhead there. And in the normal course of events on the 7 racer, at the back of the bonnet area, the bodywork becomes straight. It straightens out instead of the 5-degree slope on those. I'm giving myself a bit more room in the cockpit by keeping that slope going, which is fine, but what it means is that that hoop there has become geometrically quite a difficult shape. It's a normal bulkhead, but it starts off an inch or so, 25mm wider at the bottom than the one it's mating up with at the bonnet, and tapers in, which that in itself isn't a big problem. The tapers are okay, I can sort those. It's the circle or the semicircle at the top which has ceased to become a semicircle now, it's an ellipse. So I'm sort of struggling with the maths of that one at the moment, but I'm sure we'll get there. But that makes the whole thing then become the next unit I've got to build. Right, we'll make a start on gluing a frame up. I've got some loose tenons that I've made out of a bit of maple. This maple is incredibly hard. It's almost like plastic. I've just cut a piece that is cross grain, and it's almost impossible to snap, and it's really flexible, really hard, really shiny when you cut it. You can see where the blade on the saws burnt it, so I don't think we'll have any problem about strength with this, particularly as it's not really doing a huge amount. This is the first arch part of the nose cone rear bulkhead. Just get that in. And then I'll put tenons in the side, or rebates in the side, to take tenons for vertical pieces, which are already done, ready to do the same there and there, and then we can cut the whole thing to shape once it's dried. Modern glues are stronger than wood itself, so I'm not too bothered about the how strong it'll be. Just want to make sure that the bottom, which is the only piece that you'll see because this will be rounded off, is the has got the tenon solid in it. Pressure on it that way, a little bit of pressure on it the other way. Shouldn't need a great deal because it's got that central tenon to hold it all together, but it never hurts. That's too small. I like it. Just leave that now to dry, and we can come back and tidy it all up and start and cut the hoop and everything when that's dried. Okay, so that's got the side rails glued in as well now, so I'll just leave that to go off tonight. I've got a spreader at that end just to push them apart the same distance as there so it doesn't cave in. And we can tidy all this up, as I say, once it's sorted. I'm happy enough with that, I think. Okay, that's the first frame made up and roughed out. I've cut it down pretty much to size. I'm just going to take the rough shape of the nose cone off it, and that's going to still be too big because that's the outside diameter of the nose cone and the body shape, so we're going to have to take at least 3mm off that, so I'm not too worried if there's a little bit of problem with that, you know, cutting that out at the moment. If it's a little bit wobbly, it won't really matter too much. Until I've got the body panel makeup sorted, I can't sort that out really yet. And again, with the glass fibre nose, I've got to make an assumption on how thick that will be, and I still don't know whether or not I'm going to put, I've got to join two things at that point. I've got to join the nose cone to the body, and I'm not sure that that is going to be a solid enough way of joining it, so I think what I may well do is cut it down even smaller than the body thickness and put a thin piece of something like aluminium like that screwed to the former, and then that'll give me a way of getting a fixing either side with something like a self tapper or even a small bolt perhaps. But we'll worry about that when we get there. I'm just going to rough this out first, and then we can put that one away and move on to the scuttle. Okay, so that's the first bulkhead frame made. That's the one behind the scuttle, the nose cone I mean. I've just rounded off all the inside corners so that that's nice and smooth now. As I said before, until I get the dimensions for the side panelling and for the glass fibre top, I can't really do the outside, but that will come down in thickness. At the moment it's about 30mm wide, the framing, and that'll probably come down to about 25 when I'm finished, which is plenty strong enough. This is incredibly strong. All the joints have been tenoned and the grain is running as well as I can get it, so that it's not going to cause any stress. If you'd have just cut this out of a straight piece, you'd have had grain going that way in a very thin piece there and it would have just snapped, but as it is, we've now got the grain running 45 degrees. And so that's it, we can put that one away, move on to the scuttle next, safe in the knowledge that we're on the way with the bodywork. So that's got the front hoop assembly done, that'll support the nose cone. Next time I'll be getting on to the actual scuttle itself and make a start on making that. That'll be in a week or two, no doubt. Hope it was of interest. Look forward to seeing you next week, and we'll be doing something different on the cart. Look forward to seeing you then. Bye!